So I just wanted to know, like, people keep talking about oversupply, and I just wanted to know what is this whole thing about oversupply? Like, what is that?
See, when people talk about oversupply, I think what I feel is they also need to first discuss and look at the demand,
Okay.
and they need to assess the over demand in India.
Okay.
The latest news in the newspapers was that the population in India is growing faster than China, and we are almost equal to China, and we may just cross China's population and become number one in most populous country.
Yeah.
Now, what is this population is going to have effect on real estate has to be assessed.
Yeah.
Number one, more houses, more number of people, more houses, more people needed employment, more people are going to migrate from villages to cities. So everything is going to be more, right?
Correct.
And everything which is going to be more is going to create more demand.
Correct. So when you say like the population is growing, these are the consequences of
So
that.
always there is going to be more demand. So you need to have more supply. And today that myth of oversupply
Yeah.
is generally a barrier in people's mind.
Yeah.
That barrier has to be overcome by, I mean, we have educated population in the city. Every person who's studying or who is educated, they migrate to Pune. You don't have
Right.
uneducated people in Pune. So they are those people who are very aware. They have to create their own awareness. They have to assess their own way. They travel abroad. If you go to a cities in Europe which is not growing, which doesn't have migration, do you think there are going to be people who will invest?
Mm.
So this oversupply is created by investors who are more intelligent than a person who's just buying an house. They would invest 10 years or 20 years before anybody could even visualize
Yeah.
a real estate. And if they are investing, I mean, sure, we should look at the brand, we should look at the person who's investing, and we should follow them. If he's trying to become real rich, why you can't?
Okay. And then when you're talking about you're comparing India to Europe, and also in terms of India, and like in terms of urbanization and migration, like what are the impacts that it has on the market?
So, like Pune's growth is like growing horizontally. So, PMC was 425 square kilometers. PCMC is say 450 something square kilometers. But the PMRD, the Pune Metro Regional Development Authority, their whole regional plan is 7,600 square kilometers. They're planning the ring roads, they're planning the different economic centers. So, all this will create a lot of employment opportunities. A lot of colleges will come up, a lot of schools will come up. So first they will migrate for education, then they will migrate for employment, and once they migrate for employment, then they will settle down. So they will need houses. Once they make good for themselves, they will need larger houses. So the whole economy is going to rotate like that, and that is how you will have many economic centers in the city. So it will not be a city, it will become a large conglomerate of various cities, like we are twin cities, Pune and
Correct.
PCMC. Likewise, you will have many other cities like Pune, PCMC coming up in PMRD. And that effect, so there are going to be two effects. One is the population growth, second is the urbanization. People migrating from villages to cities.
Okay. So what I understand is like before we talk about like oversupply, the myth of oversupply, we need to understand the demand, population, migration, and the urbanization that happens,
Absolutely.
and then evaluate oversupply.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now I heard you say over demand. Now I've never heard it as a student or elsewhere like somebody say referring to demand as over demand. So like, what do you mean when you say over demand?
Yeah, like I look at from the Pune's perspective. If population is growing, I see people migrating to Pune, and if new industries are coming, we I feel there is an over demand for housing, and for over demand you need to have over supply.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by over demand, right?
Mhm.
So anything which is demand and supply are always like have to go hand in hand. If you have more supply and less demand, then it is not a good sign for economy. If you have more demand and less supply, not a good sign for economy. You need to match the demand and supply. And I think as an industry, we keep trying to match the demand and supply. And they are very location centric demand and supply which you have to assess. You can't assess a city demand and supply. That will like create a lot of ambiguity, or
Okay.
because people migrate location wise,
Yeah.
they don't migrate city wise. Also in cities also they have like different locations. So if you assess the location wise demand and supply, you will find that we are not oversupply, but there is huge demand which are not able to cater.
Okay.
That's why I mean over demand.
Okay, I understood. Because this is an exciting word. I've never heard it, so I just wanted to know, like, how did you even think of it?
No, I don't think I mean that's the way you should explain to your clients.
Supply is for the future demand.
Not future demand. There is a supply and there is a buyer already.
Hmm.
If somebody who's migrated, who's staying in a rented apartment, and who's already making money, so there is a bank who's ready to give him money,
Yeah.
and he just have to pay EMI of his earnings every month. So already there is a demand. He wants to buy and invest, and in that demand I am catering. And if that is an oversupply, you will say oversupply. I mean there is an over demand. That's why there is an oversupply.
So now that I've heard of this word overdemand, like, how do you think we should get more people to hear about this word over demand?
Actually, we should talk to media, we should talk to people, we should go on the social media and tell people that please come out of this myth of oversupply and look at the over demand which the city has created because of new colleges, new schools, new hospitals, new industries, new data centers, and population growing by 35 to 40% year on year. So that all is creating over demand. And to cater to that over demand, we are trying to have oversupply.
Yeah. Oh.
You can't have like a situation where supply is less and demand is more. Not a good
Correct.
situation. You can't have a situation where supply is more and demand is less. The best situation is that try and match it so that people get it at a reasonable price, people get an optimum price, and they make a wise investment.
Yeah. Now, going back to oversupply, after hearing all this now, I feel like people like are being a little responsible when they're talking about oversupply, hyping it so much. So
Yeah.
why do you think they're doing that?
Because they just overhear something over a dinner or over just a casual conversation, and they make opinion without talking to really an expert, without talking to any consultant. And I feel they're not serious about their own money. Somebody who's serious about their own money would go and research with the right kind of people. Like if you want to study abroad, you would go to a specialist, a person who knows which are the good colleges abroad, what courses are available to you, and you make a wise decision. If you want to buy a good car, you will go and do a good research, you will go and see the cars and then buy a car. But when they want to invest in real estate, they just want to go by the ear and say, and they just want to form opinions by just casually talking over dinners.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to refer to someone who is very seriously into it. And that's why we initiated this Real Rich series. That's why we wrote a book. And it is our commitment to the industry where we want the industry to grow, where we want buyers to be little taking decision wisely, and our industry should sustain. And that's why we're taking this initiative.
So they're just thinking of buying a house, but not as an investment.
And that's why we have with this content created by on the Real Rich, we are going to media and telling them that this is how you should look at real estate.
Yeah, they're just thinking about it as a product, but not an investment.
Not an investment. Whatever. I mean, it is a product plus investment, right? So it is not just a product where you consume and you just forget about it. You stay there, and as long as you stay there, you get appreciation also.
Correct.
So it becomes an investment. If you buy a shirt, you use it for some time, you have to throw it.
Yeah.
You buy a mobile, you use it and you have to throw it. You buy a car, use it and you have to throw it. But if you buy a house and if you sell it after 10 years, after using for 10 years or 20 years, or even if you give it to your second generation, the value is always appreciated. And because the value appreciates,
Hmm.
People call it an investment,
Investment.
but actually it is a product and investment both.
Yeah.
That's why if you calculate an yield,
Hmm.
it is generally the rental yield plus the property appreciation. It can't be just rental yield.
Now that we're talking about it, just yesterday, my friend had asked me about oversupply and what is happening in the market. So that is why I came and I was like I should probably ask you, and I told him the same thing like if you read the book you'll probably understand. So I wanted to ask you and understand from you. Uh, so now what is your one tip for people like him, who have that question like what is oversupply, what is happening in the market?
My tip is बातों में मत जाओ अपनी अक्कल लगाओ. You know what happens in this industry and in this market, there are like people selling mutual fund.
Yeah.
There are people who selling other investment products, insurance, and those people, and they create that environment where they want to divert you from real estate. But real estate is your basic thing, like roti, kapra, makan. And their main competition is that they want to divert the money from real estate to mutual fund, real estate to investment products, real estate to gold. So all these are diversion of people's mind and people's money to other investment proposal, and we all want to compete in the market. So finally, we can't say that they will not sell, we will not sell. Everybody is going to sell. Now it is your decision. If somebody is going to criticize real estate and going to divert you to mutual fund, and if you get diverted to mutual fund, it is finally your decision. Nobody is going to come and say that don't do it. So दिमाग लगाओ, market में सब कुछ available है. We are explaining you about real estate. Somebody else will explain you about mutual fund. Finally, you have to choose. You are a educated voice. You have a mind of your own.